it's not just the turnovers that some might think are unsustainable for this Green Bay Packers defense. It's the third down performance too, but that is a perfect marriage of scheme and personnel. Plus, our old friend Rachel Hopmayer joins us on the show today from CBS Detroit to talk Packers Lions. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can start the season in the NFL with a big return on FanDuel. I guess we're almost in midseason here. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Turnovers. That was the big thing that people were worried about. Oh, well, this is a team that relies too much on turnovers. Well, it's not the only number that looks like, well, if you look at the sample, it's skewed by what's happening on this decisive thing. And that's true. I made the case previously about turnovers being a cultural shift, a fundamental and philosophical difference in this defense versus the way the Packers used to play defense. And so I'm going to make a similar case on third down where the Packers right now have been unbelievable. Unbelievable. Great stats from Ben Fennell. The Packers lead the NFL in quarterback rating on third down defensively. And, buddy, it is a small number. The quarterback rating for the Packers on third down, the opponent quarterback rating on third down for the Green Bay Packers, 30.5. Second best is the Dolphins. They're at 52.2. Third best is the Bears. They're at 55.2. So the Packers, 20 plus points of QB rating better than the next closest defense on third down. They're third in third down completion percentage. So it's not just that they're, letting people catch the ball short of the sticks and rallying and tackling. No, they're not even letting completions happen. And here's a great stat from Austin Krieger, who covers the Packers, Lombardi Ave, the blog over there. Offenses converting third downs against the Packers at below 33%. So less than 1 in 3 third downs currently being converted against the Packers. If that kept up, it would be the best conversion rate that the Packers have had on third down since 2006. 2006, we're talking about almost 20 years of Green Bay Packers defense. And they have not been this good on third down. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is because it is related to the Vikings defense, a conversation we had on the squad show that's coming up later in the week. And when we're talking about the Lions, the Packers' next opponent, right? They ate up the Minnesota Vikings, who like to do some similar things to the Packers in terms of coverage disguise, in terms of simulated pressures, in terms of blitzes, double mug, A-gap, and some of the interesting, hey, let's show blitz, let's drop out of it and play cover two, where that linebacker who's mugging the A-gap has got to be the middle post runner all the way back into the middle of the field. Edgerrin Cooper made an unbelievable play against the Jaguars doing exactly that. The difference to me, and this is assuming health, this is assuming Jair Alexander plays, this is assuming Evan Williams plays, but over the course of the season, right? Because Jair Alexander's missed time, Evan Williams was not the starting safety until they went to LA, and so all of that is built in there. The Packers have the personnel. The Vikings defense is a bit of a mirage because once you take away all of the disguise and all of the blitzes and the fumble recoveries and forced fumbles and all that stuff, you're left with a defense that just really isn't that talented. Jonathan Grenard is a nice player. He's not really a difference maker. They don't really have elite players. Harrison Smith, still a very good player at his age, but they just don't have the bodies. They've got nice, Andrew Van Ginkel, really nice linebacker. Like they've done a nice job adding some pieces. Stephon Gilmore can still play. But there's no Jair Alexander. Xavier McKinney is playing at a higher level than Harrison Smith. Evan Williams is playing at a higher level than whoever is playing opposite Harrison Smith in Minnesota. There's been a couple of different guys. Cam Bynum, et cetera, et cetera. The Vikings have had some issues. Blake Cashman been in and out of the lineup for them. And they don't have the guys up front to create the same sort of havoc that the Packers do, that for all of the question marks that Green Bay has had up front, a lot of the pressure numbers, the sack numbers, they're right now in the top half of the league in a lot of those numbers. Basically all of those numbers. So if you're going to call a simulated pressure where you end up only rushing 4 and you get a clean hit on the quarterback, that's great. What happens when the quarterback has the answers, as Trevor Lawrence did in the second half against the Packers, as Jared Goff did against Minnesota? Well, you better then have the players. Green Bay actually has the players to do it. They actually have the guys. Now, you're not going to do it every down. You're not going to do it every play. But it's more than just, hey, they got lucky, that interception that the Vikings get against Jordan Love, where you've got that middle post runner in the Tampa 2 defense, and he falls off the seam route from the tight end to get to that in-breaking route where you don't expect him to be there at all. That's a really nice play by the linebacker. But if that's Christian Watson running the clear out and Romeo Doubs, for example, or Dontavian Wicks, for example, running that in-breaker, can't do that. And there were a couple other times in the game, we've talked about this, where that was true. That was just a lucky is maybe overstating it. That was a really nice play by the defense over the course of the game, over the course of a season. You're not going to get those kinds of plays from players who are not high-level players. But the Packers have Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark and what is looking like Edgerrin Cooper and Jair Alexander and Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard. They have guys who down-to-down play-to-play are also really good football players. So all of this great work on third down is not just a result of Jeff Hafley doing a great job of scheming things up. It is. But that even when Jeff Hafley does a great job of scheming things up, there are going to be opportunities for a quarterback to have an answer. Because there's always an answer. There's no perfect defense. But then it's, okay, can you do something one-on-one against Jair Alexander? Can you make a play in the middle of the field where you've got to deal with Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney, and Edgerrin Cooper? And what if that answer that you have is not as good an answer as you thought, and now you've got to hold the ball for that split second longer, and now the pass rush can get home? You've blocked up the 5-man pressure, the 6-man pressure. Okay. Now, have you read the coverage right? Did you read the safety rotation correctly? And even if you did, you have to put the ball in exactly the right spot. I'll give you a great example. Trevor Lawrence. After Edgerrin Cooper got him as the middle field runner off that double mug A-gap look, the Jaguars come back. Edgerrin Cooper has to drop back out of that A-gap, and there is one place to put that football. Seam route, cover two. You got to put the ball on the back shoulder on that seam route. It's the only place, and there's a free runner coming at you. Trevor Lawrence did it. But over the course of the season, how many times are quarterbacks going to be able to do that? Over the course of a game, how many times are quarterbacks going to be able to do that? Jared Goff against the Vikings, he found every answer. But what happens when those windows tighten up a little bit because the players are a little bit better? Because they're a little bit more athletic. Because they're a little bit better just at playing their responsibilities. Eric Stokes busted a coverage when he's supposed to be fire zone cover 3. He's squatting like it's cover 2. Those kinds of mistakes can't happen. But when you have the quality players out there, it makes it so that in those circumstances, it's even more effective. And you go back to 2021, for example, that Brandon Staley team, down to down, play to play, they were a good defense. They were the number 1 defense by DVOA that year. But where they really made their money was on third down. Because they could get to these exotic looks and they had the individual talent. Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, those two guys in particular, could make your life hell. And it wasn't like they were doing all this crazy simulated pressure stuff. Now, the Packers don't have anyone as good as Aaron Donald. They don't have anyone as good as that version of Jalen Ramsey consistently. We don't know if Jair Alexander's going to play. And even if he does, he's not as good as he was in 2020, 2021. He's still a really good football player. And so you can say, oh, it's not sustainable. They're living on third downs. They're living on turnovers. Okay. But when that's how the defense is set up, when that's how the personnel cashes out, when you have guys who can just win one-on-one battles, can be difference makers for you, can be erasers for you, I start to wonder how much it matters. And against most teams, most weeks, it's not going to matter. All right, Rachel Hopmayer from CBS Sports in Detroit. She joins us to talk a little Lions Packers. That's next on Locked On Packers. In the modern world, you get points for everything, right? Except your rent. And that can be frustrating. I know it was for me for a long time when I was renting. But here's the deal. Built Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Built. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood's reward program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or a hotel stay with over 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes or redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. No more just money out the door. Now you're actually able to get something for all that money you're spending on your rent. You have to pay the rent, right? So why not get something for it? Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying right now when you join built.com/lockedonnfl. That's JOINBILT.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use that URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com, BILT.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points with your rent payments today. Joining me now, making her triumphant return, a homecoming of sorts for Rachel Hopmayer, formerly Green Bay sports. Now in CBS Detroit, killing it. I thought maybe a couple years ago there'd be like a Bills Packers potential Super Bowl situation. Now we might have Packers Lions NFC Championship game or divisional round situation. We've got an awesome matchup this Sunday. And Rachel, like this is a team that Matt LaFleur just called the best team in the NFL, or potentially the best team in the NFL. What stands out about this Lions team this year versus last year?
First of all, let me just say it's an honor to be back with you, Peter. Additionally, I can't think of a better time to rejoin the NFC North Cup.
No, it's true.
I'm super happy to be here and that we get to talk about some incredible football this year. How lucky are we? Honestly, what stands out to me is a huge testament to both offensive and defensive coordinators here. Ben Johnson has been able to roll out a very uniquely fluid, but still largely different offense every week. And it still goes through Jared Goff, and he still is putting up ungodly stats. But the offense is really able to shapeshift, in my opinion, while this defense, thanks to Aaron Glenn and all these playmakers around here, are just, in the words of Amik Robertson last night, ball hawks, truly constantly making plays. And if Sunday is an exemplar of anything, everybody eats on both sides of the ball here.
Yeah, including like running backs throwing touchdown passes and offensive linemen catching touchdown passes. Like I thought Matt LaFleur had the most egalitarian offense in the league. And right now it might be the Detroit Lions, because they just like, they get up 15 and they're like, let's just throw some crazy, I almost said a word that I'm not supposed to say, some crazy stuff at the other team. And it seems like they're having fun. How are the vibes right now in Detroit? Are they as high as they seem from the outside?
Yes, it's so fun. I feel so lucky to go into that room as many days of the week as I possibly can. There's so much personality and there's so much, I don't want to say pride, but proud of what they've done without egotistical. There's a lot of guys who have worked really hard to get to this point, whether it's with this Detroit Lions organization over the last few years or just through their own careers. You think of guys like Khalif Raymond, almost hit the NFL record for punt return yardage on Sunday, but he's had quite a journey. And he told us after the game in 2017 with the Giants, he thought he was done with the NFL. He thought his career was over, and he trained harder than ever before that summer. And now look at him. He's just absolute dynamite. So it's really cool to see everybody's journeys kind of culminating at the same time. And also you get some trick plays out of that too.
Yeah, I have to say, from a Packers perspective, it's pretty annoying how likable they are. Like they are such from Dan Campbell, who came in and it seemed like this guy's going to be a meme. He's talking about biting kneecaps. He's doing the like, we're old school, tough guy culture. And he is partially that, but he's also like, I'm going to put my arm around these guys. I'm going to love them. I'm going to cry with them. And we're going to lean into all the analytics. He is an NFL coaching paradox. What is your impression of him, getting to see him and talk to him up close?
Absolutely wonderful. Truly a football guy. Ultimately, that man embodies grit, but also salt of the earth and dedication, but also love, like the most unfettered, genuine love for his teammates, his coaches, his players, the game. I really, truly appreciate that dedication and treating everybody like a gigantic family in that room. But additionally, if we're going to touch on biting kneecaps, the Lions promoted this cocktail that I just have to tell you guys about, because every week they promote some sort of festive cocktail that has a little punny thing about it. Well, this week for Halloween, they showed it on the Jumbotron. It's called like the kneecap biter. And it had not only bloody vampire teeth in it, which great for the spooks of us, but tequila, not my thing, could probably be swapped for vodka. And some really incredible stuff that was like, okay, you're actually leaning into this.
I'm not a tequila cocktail person. I like tequila, but
right.
Margarita, like I'll mess with, but like, yeah, beyond that, while we're on drinks, as a New Englander by native birth, were you like the only person that didn't think Dan Campbell's coffee order was totally unhinged? Is that just like a Tuesday for you?
Yeah. I have had to tone down my caffeine intake since leaving Green Bay, to be quite honest. That's probably the last time I regularly drank coffee. But as someone raised in New England, I passed by 3 Dunkin' Donuts on my drive from home to high school every day in my Uggs and my LL Bean jacket.
Of course, yes, sure.
Very standard experience. But when I do indulge in a caffeinated beverage these days, it is a black iced coffee with 1 sweet and low. So to me, I don't understand why people take this and water it, milk it down into ice cream.
I don't either. But
So
I did,
for it.
look, whatever, drink your drinks, folks. You're not, as long as you're not hurting anybody, drink your drinks.
Exactly.
Aiden Hutchinson's injury, it felt like in the moment it had the chance to scuttle a potential Super Bowl run. They have made some adjustments over the last few weeks. They played, look, Mason Rudolph, all of the Tennessee Titan caveats need to apply here. Yeah. But they found ways to make this work because of, as you mentioned, those playmakers, the secondary. They're getting really good play from guys who, to start the season, a little slow out of the gate here. How have they been able to make this all work?
It's been pretty incredible, the guys who have stepped up in his place. And Aaron Glenn has said it time and time again, nobody's going to replace Hutch, but guys do need to step up and embody some of those skills and do it in their own way, as my cat runs away from this conversation. Because Hutch is all anybody could talk about. And it really did feel like a seismic event here. He's so beloved by the city. He is a face of the city for sure. Seeing him at the stadium yesterday with his leg elevated, of course, was great. And the crowd was raucous for it. But ultimately, him out, Marcus Davenport out for a significant time as well, has really forced guys like Josh Paschal and newcomer Isaiah Thomas to really step into those roles. Josh Paschal was absent this past week, but he should be back to face Green Bay. And I wouldn't underestimate him, but Isaiah Thomas already with a fumble recovery and two or three great tackles, not sacks, but was getting around there as well. It's just, there are guys willing to do all types of jobs.
Aaron Glenn has been one of those guys who over the last few years is getting that head coaching buzz, all of those things. And I will speak for myself. I've been waiting to see it. I've been waiting to see that kind of performance from him. We're getting it lately. And again, from a Packers perspective, it's kind of annoying that this is the moment that they decided that this is going to happen. Let's shift this a little bit. Now that you have been in some other locker rooms, seen some other things, you get to look at the Packers from an outside perspective. As you've been able to catch glimpses here and there this season of them, and then get ready for this week. What is the thing that stands out to you, maybe that has changed since you've left, besides everything, frankly, all the different players, but in terms of how your perspective on this team has shifted over the last couple of years?
Yeah, there's definitely been a seismic, if I have to say that again, identity shift. When I left Green Bay, I left when Aaron Rodgers left at the same time. And that alone determines everything on a team. And I'm not even saying that in a bad way. That's just who Aaron Rodgers is on and off the field will determine your team's identity to an extent, both on and off the field. So as the last few years, I've gotten to watch guys like Jordan Love, AJ Dillon, and their personalities kind of take over the leadership role of this locker room. It's been awesome to see. Guys like Rashawn Gary, though, and Preston Smith, who I love to cover, they're still thriving. So those hallmarks don't surprise me that have stuck around. But I mean, just look at everybody catching touchdowns these days. Those are completely new receivers. And it's interesting to see what of the Packers brand stays the same and what changes. But I do think this is just a different brand of young boy ball.
All right, more with Rachel Hopmayer here to come on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I would have thought the over-under on this game would have been a little bit higher for the Packers and the Lions. It's under 50, and I feel like that is value. It has to reflect the market's assumption that Jordan Love is not going to play. But even then, the Lions are just like an auto 30-point team. Packers only going to score 17 points, 18 points, 19 points. I don't know. I don't see it. I think there's value in the over in this game. Even if you're not going to take the Packers plus 3.5, I like the Packers plus 3.5 with the over in this one. I like the points in what I think can be a shootout for the Green Bay Packers. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It is a credit to Matt LaFleur in a lot of ways. And this is a question I've been, over the last couple of years, it's been really fun for me to have, especially on the TV side, people like you and Lily, who went from Green Bay to Milwaukee, and Chancellor Johnson, we had on for the Texans, Bailey Burmaster, all these great folks who get to leave and now come back and see this team. One of my favorite questions to ask is, how has your perception of Matt LaFleur changed now that he's had a couple more years under his belt? Because, in basically every case, it was a different thing when it's Aaron Rodgers, because you can't disentangle what Matt LaFleur was doing from the Aaron Rodgers of it all. Yeah. So how has your perception of Matt changed over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's great because the timeline that he is getting to separate himself from that is different than obviously how Belichick and Brady's iteration fell apart or was torn apart, if you will. LaFleur has so much more time in his career to be able to carve out his own legacy and his own coaching career separate from what the quarterback gave him. And ultimately, I am glad to see that his personality hasn't really changed and he's still the same guy on the podium.
The eyebrows are still immaculate as ever.
And he's still just as charismatic and funny, but also still has the same Matt LaFleur approach to the game. And you could see that in some of the plays he's drawing up, where he's plugging in guys or where guys' strengths are pushing plays. And I like to see that out of him. But I also appreciate that he seems to be moving the ball forward, and it's not just sticking in the past with maybe what older regimes here would have liked to see out of him, that ultimately he's following where this team is going, and it's not just them hanging on to him like an anchor, if you will.
Yeah, it's him pushing it forward as well. He is becoming more of when it's Aaron Rodgers, you mentioned this. Aaron Rodgers is the thing. He is the end all and the be all of your team. And now that he's gone, Matt LaFleur can step into a little bit more of that role. And I think this team in particular is responding to him. I mean, I've been making the joke that they're 2.5-0 with Malik Willis. And that's a credit to Matt LaFleur and to Malik Willis.
It is.
The evolution of Jordan Love. What have you seen from him? Because you were there early baby infancy stages of Jordan Love. And now he's, this kind of star quarterback. Ollie Connolly from the Read Optional called him the greatest TV show in the NFL right now, because he's just going to do some crazy things every week. What do you see from Love?
He's so much more dynamic. And not only that, I think we saw sparks of that there and where the ceiling could have been, but the confidence in being so versatile has grown immensely. I mean, I love to watch that guy throw. And I can't say that about a lot of quarterbacks. I do not think a lot of quarterbacks are nice to watch, but he is one that I truly do enjoy. I was lucky. I'm standing outside the Lions locker room last night and I'm watching the ending of Packers Jags just on in one of like the sweet TVs, and everybody's glued to that, and Patriots Jets. But you got to be locked in from a professional perspective because this is who we're facing next week. But I really do enjoy watching him play these days, and just having so much more confidence behind the wheel will determine everything. And knowing where you can tell the moments where the guys are trusting him to read the options and where he's fine with executing what's been handed down. And again, nothing wrong with either of those things, but it's just been really exciting to see him step into his own and not mirror Aaron and not feel like he had to fit a mold. He's so uniquely his own. And I just appreciate how fearless he is out of the pocket.
I think people miss, and I'm probably guilty of this too, when you compare him to Rodgers. It's not just that he played and practiced with Aaron Rodgers every day. They drafted Jordan Love because he plays a lot like Aaron Rodgers. Like that play style is innate to him, and that playmaker vibe. I mean, Packer fans have been watching it for 30 years because there's a Brett Favre in there too, of just like, I don't know, I think I can make this throw. Let me just see what I can do here. Like, what he's got a little bit of like, hey, watch this in his game, which is really fun. The counterpart in this game is Jared Goff, who I think this year didn't start off red hot, but over the last few weeks, that Vikings game in particular, I mean, answered every question you would have about him. Can he handle the Brian Flores pressure looks? Can he handle any pressure looks? And just had every answer against the Vikings. What has been different about Jared Goff this year? Because he does look like someone who is not going to turtle under pressure, which had been an issue for him.
Yeah, it had, from an outside perspective looking in. Now that I'm here and watching him work and seeing what he does week in, week out, I don't know if it's a confidence issue previously, or that he just has built the trust with some of these guys who have been here long enough. Obviously, Jameson Williams is not a factor in this particular game we're talking about, but has built relationships with these receivers that he knows he's going to go get. He's also not chasing these stats that just happen to look amazing, except I have a picture from yesterday's that was so funny, like a handful of passing yards, but 3 touchdowns, because that's how it happens. Everybody knows in this system, especially offensively, that there's such an integral tool, and that your time will come and it'll be the right door that opens. That even when talking to Amon-Ra St. Brown about how great does it feel that Goff has consistently found you for 5 weeks in a row. And that's the first time a receiver has had a 5-game touchdown reception streak since Calvin Johnson in like 2011.
Wow.
And I said, how good does that feel? You know, that chemistry, that relationship is still there and it's consistent. And even he said, it's not about me, it's about the team. But Goff is the same way, that he loves to be the quarterback of this team, but it's not about him being the quarterback of this team. I do think there are maybe elements of his training this summer that added a little more strength. And I'm not saying he's bulky by any means, but maybe that muscle memory is finally becoming a little more permanent instead of just having to build, that it's just baseline. I just think he's subtly good at everything he does.
That is a perfect encapsulation of Jared Goff. He is subtly good at everything he does. And what's interesting is if you talk to people in the league, they are so much more impressed with him than the average NFL fan, even than the average media person in sports media watching him, because he can do things like some of the backside digs that he'll get to, the throws that he'll rip in the middle of the field. He does it so calmly and casually. And it's like, those are tough throws. He has real arm talent. And I don't think he gets enough credit for the actual amount of like physical tools he has.
Right. And there's not many instances where he does have to pull what Jaden Daniels did last night.
Right.
And there are instances where yesterday didn't get off to the best start for the offensive line and he had to tough it out a bit. But what else can't he do ultimately?
I mean, he's not going to make plays with his legs, but the offense gives him so many outlets and so many opportunities to make plays. It kind of doesn't matter. That's the thing about this offense. You mentioned the versatility that they have. Jameson Williams, fine. How about we run it 40 times and Jahmyr Gibbs is just going to break off a 70-yard touchdown run and we'll be fine. Like has to be so frustrating as a defense to have that menu offensively. If you're going to try and help the Lions a little, Ben Johnson calls you and says, Hops, let's talk about this Packers defense. Let's go and attack this team. What is going to have to be the identity for the Lions? Jordan Love or no Jordan Love to attack them on Sunday?
I think they might have to be the most fluid they've been this season. Whereas most of the time you can kind of see the identity shaking out in the first quarter and then maybe a trick play or two throws them off the rest of the game. I think they might have to be more fluid than ever in really oscillating back and forth between the ground and the air. I think they're going to have to not get comfortable just going, okay, let's run it until we can pass it into the end zone. I think it's going to have to come down to reading every single time they line up. And that's okay. And I think Goff is a quick thinker and is smart when he can read those options. But I really do think this Packers defense knows what they're getting into. And not only do you have to give Goff a good pocket, but you've got to use the tight ends like they have been able to with some great yards after catch lately, but you might be running and gunning it.
Yeah, I think this is a critical game for Evan Williams to get healthy because, Jair Alexander, we don't know the status of him. It seems like the Packers have dodged the injury bullet as we stand here now as we're recording this, but we don't know Jordan Love's status. We don't know Jair Alexander's status. We don't know Evan Williams' status, but without Jameson Williams, Evan Williams is the guy to me, that middle of the field defense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, even though Laporta has not quite been what we saw last year. And this defense trying to stop the run is going to be huge. If the Lions can run the ball, it's a long day for anybody because it just makes them so tough to defend. Rachel, this was so much fun. Thank you so very much. And luckily we get to do this one twice. Packers Lions is going to be a great one, maybe 3 times. Who knows? Hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Thanks to Rachel for coming back on the show. She's back. We are so back. Maybe we'll do it again. Another Packers-Lions matchup. At least one, could be two more. Could be. We'll see. Back tomorrow, crossover Thursday. Matt Derry, our pal from Locked On Lions, joins us on the show. We still don't know what the situation is injury-wise. We'll have more information on that as we get there. Of course, we'll bring that all to you on Locked On Packers over at The Leap as well, a newsletter we would love for you to subscribe to. So follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow all of our social channels, Peter_Bukowski, or at Locked On Packers, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. And of course on YouTube, so you can stay Locked On Packers.